What if I told you that everything you believed about Linux gaming, the lag, the frustration, it just doesn't work, all of that is completely gone because something just dropped that made a game go from 110 frames per second to 860 frames per second.
Oh my god! Wow!
Yeah, it's normal to be surprised. I'll provide full proof to back everything I'm saying. And if we talk about microslop, Windows is still over there asking you, would you like to open this in Microsoft Edge? No, I would not. Stop fucking this. Stick around because today we're talking about why Linux just changed the game literally, and why Windows is slowly becoming the most expensive, most annoying piece of software you'll ever own. Alright, let's build the foundation real quick, because to understand why this is such a big deal, you need to know what Wine actually is. Wine is not an emulator. It's the technology that lets you run Windows applications and games on Linux. No Windows license, no dual boot, no virtual machine eating half your RAM like a hungry raccoon at 2 a.m. It's also the foundation of Proton, which is what Valve uses inside Steam to let you play Windows games directly on Linux. So when Wine improves, everything improves. Steam gaming, compatibility, performance, all of it. And Wine just released version 11, and version 11 came with something called anti-sync. Modern games are heavily multi-threaded. That means the game is running dozens of processes at the same time, physics, audio, rendering, AI, input, all happening simultaneously. Windows has a system built deep into its kernel to keep all those threads coordinated. It's called the NT Synchronization API, and it is brutally efficient at this job. The problem was, Linux doesn't have that. It never did, so Wine had to fake it. For years, they used workarounds called eSync and fsync, clever hacks that tried to replicate Windows behavior using existing Linux tools, and they worked. Sort of like duct tape on a pipe. Functional but not elegant. Anti-sync is different. Instead of faking Windows behavior with Linux tools, it builds a brand new kernel driver that directly models the Windows API. It exposes something called /dev/tsync, a dedicated channel for Wine to talk to the kernel. In simple terms, Linux stopped trying to pretend to be Windows and just built something better. And the results? This is where I need you to actually pay attention. Dirt 3 is a racing game, multi-threaded and pretty demanding. On the old system, Dirt 3 runs 110 frames per second. On Wine 11 with anti-sync, it runs 860 frames per second. Not a typo, not a benchmark error. 860 frames per second. That is not an upgrade, that is a resurrection. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands jumped from 130 to 360 frames per second. And then there's Call of Duty, Black Ops 1, which didn't even run before. But now it runs smoothly. You don't have to do anything special to get this. Starting with Linux kernel 6.14, anti-sync is baked directly into the mainline kernel. Most mainstream Linux distributions will get this automatically. You just update and suddenly your games fly. Compare that to Windows, where you update and suddenly Recall is back, Edge is your default browser again, and somehow OneDrive is syncing files you never asked it to touch. I want to be fair here. Windows is familiar, it has compatibility, it has market share, and I understand why people use it. But let me describe a real experience that people have every single day on Windows. You sit down at your computer, you just want to play a game or get some work done. First, Windows wants to update. You say, not now, I'll update it later. You open your browser, and the option on your screen showing, would you like to set Edge as your default? You choose no. You try to open a file. Save this to OneDrive? No. You open settings. Sign in with a Microsoft account for the best experience. I have a local account. I choose this, and then you finally open your game. In the corner, a little notification. Recall is learning from your activity. You didn't turn Recall on. It just came back like a bad habit. And through all of this, your RAM is sitting at 50% usage. You haven't opened anything demanding. Windows is just existing and consuming everything around it. Now flip to Linux. You sit down, you open your game. It runs at 860 frames per second. Nobody asks you anything, no pop-ups, no upsells, no AI watching your screen, no browser wars, no cloud storage guilt trips, just your computer doing what you told it to do. Wine 11 also brought something called a complete WoW 64 implementation. WoW 64. Windows on Windows 64-bit is the system that lets old 32-bit and even 16-bit Windows apps run on modern 64-bit systems. Wine now has its own complete version of this. Built from scratch, which means old legacy games and applications that people wrote off as unrunnable on Linux suddenly have a real chance. Old classics, old software, things you thought were gone forever. Linux said, nah, we'll keep those too. Wine 11 also includes many small fixes, tweaks, and compatibility improvements. Each one may seem minor on its own, but together they make running Windows software on Linux smoother than ever before. So let's zoom out for a second. A few years ago, Linux gaming was a punchline. You'd mention it and someone would laugh and say, yeah, good luck with that. But today, a software update just pushed a game from 110 to 860 frames per second. Old, unplayable titles are now running clean. The technology is now in the mainline kernel. No special setup, no hacks, and no technical gymnastics. If you've been sitting on the fence about Linux, whether it's for gaming, for work, for anything, I genuinely think 2026 is the year the excuse runs out. The performance is there, the compatibility is there, the simplicity is there. The only thing left is you making the move. If this video helped you understand what's actually happening in the Linux world, drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and let me know in the comments. Are you on Linux, or are you still letting Windows ask you to open things in Edge?